All right, I got 19 minutes before my laundry's ready. Let's see if we can do this. I'm sorry the window's open. It was quite warm in my room because I left the heater on, my little baby heater right there. Whoop, whoop, whoop. There it is. Yeah. On all night. And, which is lovely at night, but then during the day it gets very hot. So, yeah, sorry about the open window. You might hear some people. I also have neighbors upstairs who seem to be like moving around a bit, but you know, it's their house, it's their right to move around, so I can't tell them not to walk, you know? I also a lot of things have changed the last month. I changed the direction my camera was facing in because I think the lighting is a lot better when I shine my bright white light against the white background of my wall and then turn the TV this way or the monitor this way. So here's a new version of my room that you've never seen before, I don't think. There's the pile of stuffed animals that I arrange every morning, and if anyone moves one of them, I have to put it back the right way because this is how they like to sit. And as you can see, the breakfast allotment is over here. Anyway, we have books to talk about, and I only have 19 minutes. Let's see if I can actually do this in a reasonable amount of time. I got a message. Fuck it. Anyway, sorry. I try to do these all in one take, too, so that there's not as much editing, and I feel like I keep shooting myself in the foot with that. And honestly, I probably should edit these, but, like, they're supposed to be snappy and fun, you know? Anyway, so, March. I read The Complete Cheese Sweet Home Part 1 by Kanata. And it only just now started to annoy me that it says The Complete Cheese Sweet Home Part 1. I feel like if your first volume, like technically the first volume of any series that you intend on finishing is The Complete. But I get what they're going for. I think it has volumes 1, 2, and 3, and 3 bonus cat comics. Yay! So this is just the first 3 comics. It's in full color. And it's adorable. I don't have a ton to say about this. As you guys know, I just needed a mental break. And I loved this. There were a lot of stories that I missed. Either because, like, I watched the anime for a while and I'd pick up volumes. But because everything's so contained, it didn't really matter which volume I was reading. Which now that would destroy me inside doing that. But as a kid in the library, you just grabbed what was there and read it. So I knew of Blackie, but I actually had never seen his, like, introduction. Like, I remember reading about him or watching an episode with him teaching Chi how to be a cat. And, like, now I got to, like, see him torturing residents of the apartment and meet his owner, who was just a bamf. The owner's in, like, 2 pages, but basically they're like, you can't have a cat in here, and he's like, fuck you, which is kind of great. But yeah, so Cheese Sweet Home, highly recommend. It's a really good turn your brain off and just enjoy cute things kind of series. And there's something I feel like I have to say, even though there's a big part of me that's like, obviously this isn't about that, but, like, the one thing that sometimes makes my brain turn on when I'm reading Cheese Sweet Home in a negative way is that she is an outdoor cat, and I do not, for the most part, think it's good to have an outdoor cat. There, I said it. That's all. That's all. Especially if you live in the city, I see arguments for, like, well, if you live in the country, and even then it's like, well, if you live in the country, then there's dangerous creatures outside that, like, might hurt your cat. But in the city, there's cars, anyway, I just don't think it's necessary to have an outside cat. I think it almost always leads to heartbreak, and I don't know. That's all. That's the only thing about Cheese Sweet Home that I'm like, oh man, I wish she weren't an outside cat. But she is a fictional cat who goes on fictional cat adventures outside. So it's completely, like, I think it's fine. Obviously, it's probably based on a real cat who did go outside. To each their own. It's just something I felt the need to say. Anyway, so that's Cheese Sweet Home. That was my March book. So let's talk about your guys' March books, which probably weren't as quick reads as mine was. So now adult Chick-fil-A Death Fry said, love the video. Thank you. I actually finished my book recently, and this was for last month. This was for Asian Inspired World, I believe. And there was a plot twist at the end that was really well done. And they said, I'm probably going to reread or listen to A Darker Shade of Magic for April, and I'm still deciding what Redwall book to read for March. And then there was a quick exchange about like, well, they're all good. And I'm like, there's a part of me that's like, no, what's the first one though? But that gets complicated because you could ask that about Dragonlance, and technically the original trilogy, though I think is the best introduction to Dragonlance, technically not the first books. You know what I mean. Like, if you want to read in order, I think Legend of Huma might be the first book, but even that I'm not 100% sure on. I'm sure there's something further back in the history of the Dragonlance world. Anyway, okay. Mandy, my March reading challenge is Chrysalis by Rhino Z. It's actually a web novel, so not a book I can finish because it's still ongoing, but I recently plowed through a bunch more chapters and it fits the general theme of the month and is +1 for non-mammal. Good job, Mandy. The protagonist, named Anthony, was a human that died in our world and was reborn as a giant ant. Yep, an ant. The story tells of his journey from baby ant to super giant, super raw ant that fights his way down into the depths. It's a lit RPG, which I know a lot of people were talking about last month too, is something I've never even heard of. So it's full of stats and leveling up, so it's basically my favorite thing ever. The story is not the most well written. Grammar and spelling are a bit iffy in some points. You can tell it's not sent to an editor. But the world building and story are so absolutely fun, and it does not bother me. Anthony is very silly, but also capable and logical. If he was too much of either side, it would get a little cloying or boring, but he manages to hit a fun medium. The story also has all of my favorite things to read about. Base building, town management, I love that stuff. Stats, magic, lots of combat, so highly recommend if these are things you also enjoy. Yay! That's super fun. I don't think I've read any web novels. There are a few things that have gotten published that I read before they were published, but those were mostly manga, not like long form novels. I haven't been reading a lot of text online recently, like fan fiction either. I want to get back into that. Most of the time, if I'm reading something online, it's a comic or manga. Anyway, okay, Chick-fil-A Death Fries comes back later, saying, I'm not super far into it, but I started listening to a couple Redwall books. Dang. I'm rereading number 1 because there's a villain who's a snake, Asmodeus, and he's the most terrifying villain in any children's or YA novel, especially in the cartoon. I've also been rereading Triss, which starts off at least about some slaves who start to revolt to break out and free themselves. Redwall is really good, like I remember, but I think the first time I read Triss, a lot of the finer details kind of flew over my head because, wow, it's brutal at the start. Obviously, as a children's book, there's nothing super graphic or hardcore, but just the way the main characters all start out is heartbreaking and makes you hate the villains. I definitely recommend because despite being children's books, it's an incredibly good read for older audiences. Awesome. I'm kind of disappointed I didn't end up getting a Redwall book, but the mental toll was just a lot last month. So I'm glad I went with the book I went with, but I did see March as being like, I'm going to read Redwall, and then that didn't happen. So maybe next time, or maybe I'll just read it my fun time. Like, I do read fun books sometimes that aren't to do with this. Ashley says, going to be rereading East by Edith Petrov as my March book. I hope I said that right. Patro? It might be Patro. It's a retelling of East of the Sun, West of the Moon, and one of the main POVs is the White Bear. Rereading so I can read the sequel next. This book is one of my favorite fairy tale retellings, and I read a lot of those. I love retellings. I like ones. There's modern retellings, which I think are really cool, but then what if we just nudged this one way? Sir, I'm trying to record. Say you're sorry to the people who wanted to listen to me talk about books. All 4 of them. Okay, he's sorry. Yeah, I love retellings. Like, oh, but what if this happened in medieval fantasy? Or like, what if this happened but the government was completely different and was more involved in the story? Like, things like that. It also sounds like your book could also work for next month. Like, it could work for 2 months, which was good. That's smart. I can't think. The Rob of Wonder. For our last take, this has been a brutal month for me, and I'm going to have to switch my book midstream to finish. Don't worry, I got you, because I'm doing the same thing this month. I'll show you guys in a second. Gonna see if I can come up with something short in my library and try to get it in for you in the next few days. Otherwise, March might just be a write-off. And you know what? That's fine. That's something I've been, like, definitely telling anyone who said they wanted to get in on this book club is, like, jump in whenever, tag out whenever. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. That's fine. Once again, I've forgotten to open up the book prompts for the month, but I'm going to grab those right now while telling you how fine it is, because it is fine, like, genuinely and truly. There's no reason to get upset or, you know, think you failed or can't continue, because, yeah, it's all good. Where did I put my book stuff? Guys, where did I put it? Where did I put the list of +1s? Because there's... I wish I could just pause the recording, like you can pause the recording in Audacity, but you can't do that. 2021 reading challenge ideas. There it is. All right, so now we're going to talk about April. April is Sorcerer. Woo! And the entire concept is a book with magic in the title, which I was a little disappointed with me and Elle, because neither of us have books on our shelves, that, at least not, that didn't pop out to me, with magic in the title, which was weird. I didn't go book by book, so there's likely something with magic in the title among our bookshelves somewhere, but I didn't see it, so I went on a search, and I'll show you what I've got, but it's +2 for a unique magical system. So we talked about that, how loosey-goosey the rules are. Basically, if magic exists in the world, it doesn't have to be thoroughly explained or have a Hunter x Hunter-esque, like, moment of explaining all the new rules for the season. Just, like, there's magic, and there's some, like, rules to it, and that's it. Alright, so the books I picked, and I picked books, because I'm not sure how this month is going to go for me, much like Rob. So I have one larger book and one smaller book, both with magic in the title. Let's start with... pick. Let's start with Magic for Liars. So Magic for Liars is by Sarah Gailey. Gailey? We'll find out. We won't find out. I'm just going to continue on. And the concept for this book is there's a world with magic in it. And some people have magic and some people don't. And they kind of just live parallel lives. Like, they kind of just, I'll stay to my side, you stay to your side. And the main character's sister was magic. And it's was because she died. But the main character needs to go and investigate it because she became a detective. So, yeah, it's super interesting. And her strange, magically gifted Tabithia is the name of the sister. It just sounds super interesting. It doesn't seem like a heavy read on any level. Like, it seems just like a fun book. But if I don't have the time to dedicate to this, or I end up kind of fading in and out on it, I also got a poetry book called Depression and Other Magic Tricks by Sabrina Benaim. Benaim. I'm so sorry. But obviously the title grabbed me right away. Like, it looks really interesting. I've recently gotten more into poetry in the last, like, year or two. Rebecca, my friend from high school, actually recommended me a book that I really loved. It was a poetry book, and I'm looking for it right now, and I'm starting to accept that I'm not going to find it easily, and I probably won't be able to get it for this video, and yeah, no, I can't find it. But I've never been much into poetry in a read a whole book of poetry sense. Like, I've always liked poetry. I'm not one of those people who just hate it outright, which, you know, more power to you if that's how you are. But, like, I just never sought it out to read a collection of poems. And this just seemed really interesting. And I've recently read a few books of poetry that I liked after Rebecca recommended hers to me. Not that she wrote it, but the one that she liked. So yeah, those are my 2 books for the month. Hopefully I'll finish both of them, and then I'll give myself extra credit or something. There's no real tracking of points here. But for now, I think that's it. Let's see how I did as far as when I have to go get my laundry. In 3 minutes. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I did such a good job, you guys. By the way, do you like my earring? It's a little gummy bear with frosting on it. And I got a matching thing. There's a lovely person on Etsy who made them for me. Not like personally, just like, but she did make them for me. She just didn't know while she was making them that they were for me. Right? Anyway, okay. I'm gonna go. Thank you guys so much for listening. Keep reading. Keep having fun. If you didn't get March, that's fine. Just keep marching forward and get a new book for April. Okay, bye.